Hello, my little mathematicians. We're going to finish up the fraction study guide, problems 19 and 20. So let's go ahead and read problem 19. It says, a broken pipe was leaking 1 1/3 gallons of water per minute. It took Lisa 8.5 minutes to stop the leak. How many gallons of water was wasted? So how many gallons is our main question we're asking. And then the two things they told me was it's leaking at a rate of 1 1/3 gallons per minute. So that means 1 1/3 gallons per 1 minute. And it took her 8.5 minutes to stop it. When I have problems like these, some of you guys immediately know what to do, and that's great. If you're like me and you struggle, I always know to start with the one that has one singular unit given to me. And units are things like minutes, hours, gallons, liters, miles. Okay, those are units, right? So see how this has one singular unit, just minutes, and this has two units with it, gallons per minute. This is a rate, and this is just a singular unit, okay? So I'm going to start with the singular one, 8.5 minutes. And I'm going to use what I like to call the conversion one, the one that gave me 2 units, to help me get to my answer. So what you need to do is you always put the like units diagonally across from each other so that they'll cross cancel. So since minutes is here, I want minutes to go down below. And then what went with minutes for my conversion one? It was gallons per minute. So gallons is here. What number went with gallons? 1 1/3. What number went with minutes? 1. Okay, now the unit of minutes cross cancels, and all I'm left with is the unit of gallons, which is great because that's what I'm looking for, how many gallons of water was wasted. Okay, if the two numbers are across from each other, you multiply them, right? Because remember when we're multiplying, like we multiply across, right? If they were ones on top and ones on the bottom, then you would divide. You would divide the top by the bottom. But in this instance, they're across from each other. So in order to get your final answer, you need to do 8.5 times 1 1/3. And then over 1 times 1 is just 1, right? So essentially it's just 8.5 times 1 1/3, and that will give me my answer. So let's go ahead and work that out. When you have 8.5 times 1 1/3, you need to change these mixed numbers to improper fractions. So let's keep the denominator the same. Multiply the denominator with the whole number. 2 times 8 is 16. 16 plus 1 is 17. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Okay, and now I can go ahead and just multiply like normal. I always like to cross cancel if I can, and I can cross cancel this 2 and 4 because 2 can go into both of them. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. I can't cross cancel the 3 and 17, so let's go ahead and now just multiply across. 17 times 2 is 34, and 1 times 3 is 3. Now, since this is getting to my final answer, I want to change it from an improper to a mixed number. So I take the top, 34, and divide it by the bottom, 3. How many times does 3 go into 34? 10 times. Because 3 times 10 is 30, right? And then you subtract this, and you get 4. And you're like, ooh, wait a minute. My remainder is greater than what I divided by. Okay, so many people rush into this and then they forget to check that. And they just blindly write, oh, remainder 4. Okay? If you happen to do this and this remainder is greater than what you divided by, this number that you divided by up here wasn't great enough. So you need to erase all this and choose a bigger number. So I'm going to choose 11. 11 times 3 is 33. Now when you subtract that, 34 minus 33 is 1. That remainder is less than what I divided by. So then I know I'm actually good. Okay, so I'm going to put my remainder over what I divided by. So my final answer is 11 and 1/3. Okay, I did this on purpose because I've been seeing a lot of mistakes where people don't pay attention. Your remainder here always has to be less than the number you're dividing by. So please always double check that. And if that happens to you, for instance, remember how there was a 4 here left over that first round that we did it? Please erase this and choose a bigger number to divide by. Okay, so now my final answer is 11 and 1/3, which means it's 11 and 1/3 gallons that was wasted. Okay, let's go ahead and look at our next one. It's done kind of similarly. An Olympic swimmer can swim at an average rate of 9.5 miles per hour. So 9.5 miles per hour. So 1 hour. At that rate, how many hours, so we don't know how many hours, that's what we're trying to find, will it take the swimmer to swim 35 miles? Which one should we start with? If you said 35, that's right, because that's the one that has a singular unit with it. It only has the unit of miles with it. This one has 2 units with it. What should I put down here? Miles or hours? If you said miles, you're right, because we want miles to cross cancel, and it was miles per hour. So my other unit was hours. Now, what was in front of the miles? 9.5. What number was in front of the hours? 1. Okay, and then miles canceled. I'm left with just the unit of hours, which is great because that's what I wanted to find. How many hours will it take? But this is slightly different than last time because instead of it being this times the other number, it's this on top of this one. So that's essentially saying 35 divided by 9.5, right? That's what a fraction bar means. So 35 divided by 9.5 will give me my final answer. Again, if the two numbers are across from each other, they get multiplied together. So we did 8.5 times 1 1/3. If one's on top and one's on the bottom, the one on top is being divided by the one on the bottom, okay? And now we know how to do this. We're going to put the whole number over 1. And this one, we keep the denominator the same. 2 times 9 is 18. 18 plus 1 is 19. And then since we're dividing, remember, keep, change, flip. So I'm going to flip this second fraction and multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, keep the first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication and flip that second fraction. Keep, change, flip when you're doing division with fractions. And now we just move on like normal. I can't cross cancel these, so I'm just going to multiply across. 35 times 2 is 70. 1 times 19 is 19. Now I need to change this back to a mixed number. I'm going to have to do long division because I can't do that in my head. Okay, 19 can't go into 7, but it can go into 70. How many times? As a starting place, let's kind of round 19 up to 20. How many times would 20 go into 70? Well, 20 times 4 is 80. That's too big. So let's try 20 times 3 is 60. Let's see what 19 times 3 is. Will that work? So 3, 4, 5. That is 57. If we multiplied by 3, let's take a look. 10 minus 7 is 3. 6 minus 5 is 1. Is this remainder less than what we divided by? It sure is. So 13 is a great starting place. If this was too big, if this was bigger than 19, then I need to erase the 3 and maybe try the 4. Okay, so 19 goes into 73 and 13 nineteenths. So that's my answer. 3 and 13 nineteenths hours is how long it'll take the swimmer to swim 35 miles. Okay, so our main takeaways here, start with the one that has one singular unit. Use your conversion rate, the one that gave you 2 units for the same thing. So 9.5 miles per hour, 1 1/3 gallons of water per minute. Okay, we're going to multiply it by that one. And you always choose what to put where. You put the unit that this one is diagonally across from each other. So that's why I put miles on the bottom. That's why I put minutes on the bottom. And then you put the numbers that match with it. 9.5 went with miles, 1 went with hours. 1 1/3 went with gallons, 1 went with the minute. Okay, if they're across from each other, you multiply them. If one's on top and one's on the bottom, then you divide them. And then from there, you guys know how to do the basic operations of multiplying fractions or dividing fractions in mixed numbers. Okay, congratulations. You just figured out how to do what I consider some of the most hardest types of word problems. Great job.